Hello, my name is James Sanderson. I'm the evangelism minister here at the Brown Street Church of Christ in Waxahachie, Texas. Glad you're with us today. This study is on how do we study with a person from the Jehovah Witnesses. They have different beliefs, and what we're going to do in this study is we're going to look at both their history, how they came about, and then we're going to get into some of their doctrines. Now, guys, I got to tell you, and you're probably already seeing this, this is a long video, and this is only part one. There's a lot to know about the Jehovah Witnesses so we can better study with them and show them the truth of God's Word. If it gets too long for you, just take a break, come on back a little bit later, come back in a couple of days or a week or whatever, watch it in parts if you have to, but everything in here, I think you're going to see, is important for us to know. So just bear with me. We're trying to do the best we can, but sometimes these denominations can be very complicated. All right, so let's get started today. So you are on my website, my YouTube channel. And so if you want to get back on there and see other videos, I've got hundreds of videos on all kinds of Bible subjects. If you like these, you can take these, you can send links to your friends, people you're trying to study with. They can be a very easily used evangelistic tool. So just type in Saving Souls in the 21st Century. I also got a website, savingsouls.net, and you can get on there and see my workbook in evangelism and all my materials I have and upcoming workshops. It'll tell all about me and my family. Just get on there and hopefully these will help you. If you like the video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you subscribe to our channel. All right, thank you. All right, so again, this is part one of a two-part lesson. So here we are, the Kingdom Hall, right? Maybe you see these buildings around your town. This is where the Jehovah Witnesses have their Bible studies and worship. They are, for the most part, very kind people. That's what I've always experienced. And they're very evangelistic. They'll show up at your door, usually a couple of people, and they're going to try to get you into a Bible study. So they do a lot of this. And so that's probably what you know about the Jehovah Witnesses. Let's talk about their origin and their history. So Jehovah Witnesses originated as a branch of the Bible student movement, which developed in the United States in the 1870s among followers of Christian restorationist minister Charles Taze Russell. So Charles Russell was their first president, okay? He really is a person who started this group. Bible students, missionaries were sent to England in 1881, and the first overseas branch was opened in London in 1900. The group took on the name International Bible Students Association, and by 1914 it was also active in Canada, Germany, Australia, and some other countries. The movement split into several rival organizations after Russell's death in 1916. We're going to see that in a little bit, with one led by Russell's successor, Joseph Judge Rutherford. So he became the president, another president, of the Jehovah Witnesses. And he gained control of their publications, the Watchtower magazine and the Watchtower Bible Society of Pennsylvania. So he got control of that. So here's a couple pictures of these guys. This is Charles Taze Russell, their first leader, and then you've got Judge Rutherford over here. He took over after Charles' death. So under Rutherford's direction, the International Bible Students Association introduced significant doctrinal changes. So things changed after Charles died that resulted in many long-term members leaving the organization. So there was a lot of people that left. The group, though, regrew rapidly, particularly in the mid-1930s with the introduction of new preaching methods. Okay? Let's see here. All right, sorry about that. Just want to make sure my phone is turned off here. In 1931, the name Jehovah Witnesses was adopted, further cutting ties with Russell's earlier followers. So that's when they first became Jehovah Witnesses. Substantial organizational changes continued as congregations and teaching programs worldwide came under centralized control. Further refinements of its doctrines led to the prohibition of blood transfusions. So if you know this about people from the Jehovah Witnesses, many of them believe that you cannot get a blood transfusion, and so they will die sometimes because of that. They don't believe in the cross, okay? So they abandoned that whole idea, and they don't believe Jesus died on a cross. They believe he died, but it was on a stake, not a cross, okay? They don't celebrate holidays, birthdays. So if you're like my wife, Amy, and she's got a student that is a Jehovah Witness, and they're celebrating a birthday party there, the parents will ask that that child not participate. So if everybody gets cupcakes, that child cannot, because they don't believe in celebrating any other days. They also have quite a view on this Armageddon global war, and that it's going to restore peace on earth. Okay, because the Jehovah Witness believe that they're going to come and all live here on earth afterwards, except for the 144,000. So what happens, and this is what you find with these religious groups, they evolve and they evolve and they evolve, and their beliefs change and change and change. But the Bible just stays the same, doesn't it? It never moves. It's always the same, but yet this is what happens in this denominational world, is you constantly, when you get in the history of these groups, they just constantly evolve and change their beliefs. In 1945, the Watchtower Society, which Russell had founded, was a publishing house in New York City, New York, amended its charter to state that its purpose included preaching about God's kingdom, acting as a servant and governing agent of Jehovah Witnesses, and sending out missionaries and teachers for the public worship of God and Jesus Christ. So this is where their headquarters was in New York City. Now, today, the Jehovah Witnesses, this is the groups that they split into. All right. Now, the main one is still right above my picture. There is the Jehovah Witnesses Watchtower Society. That's the main one there in the red, but there are some smaller fractions of it that still all exist today, the other three, and you can kind of see how they split over time. As of 2023, Jehovah Witnesses reported a monthly average membership of approximately 8.6 million active involved in preaching, with a peak of around 8.8 million. So they got about 8.8 million people that are members of their group. Jehovah Witnesses have an active president in most countries, though they do not form a large part of the population of any country. To be counted as an active member, an individual must be a publisher and report some amount of time preached to non-members. Jehovah Witnesses preaching activity is self-reported, and members are directed to submit a field service report. So they have to give a report every month of how much time they spent studying and trying to reach other people. Baptized members who fail to submit a report every month are termed irregular, and those that do not submit a report for 6 continuous months are termed inactive. So they're not counted as part of their group anymore. Okay? Now, if you walk into a building, we have one right it's across the street from the Brown Street Church here and just a little bit around the corner. I've been there several times, sat in their Bible studies, I've sat at Bible studies with them, and this is basically what you're going to see when you walk in. They've got all these chairs set up, and then up front, we're going to see here that they are very evangelistic. Every time they meet, they train their members to evangelize, and I want to show you this right here. This is a table and a couple of chairs. So they will do a skit a couple times each service they have, and they'll have one person, and they'll like, okay, I have this question, this question, and this question, and then another person who's supposed to be playing the person from the Jehovah Witnesses is teaching, well, this is how you answer this, and this is how you answer this, and this is how you answer this, and they do a little skit. And they do a couple of those every time they get together. So the point is, every time they get together, they are training their members to be evangelistic. I'm impressed with that. I like that, being an evangelism minister, and I'm always trying to get the church to go out and evangelize. That's impressive to me. Okay. For 2023, approximately 1.8 billion hours of preaching were reported. Now, this is evangelism, okay, out on the streets. And around 270,000 new members were baptized. That's how many baptisms they had. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. The Watchtower Society reported that Jehovah Witnesses conducted about 7.3 million home Bible studies with non-members. That's a lot, including Bible studies conducted by witness parents with their children. And then they have their communion service, which they call the Memorial of Christ's Death. They do it once a year. And they reported that in 2023, 20.5 million people attended that worldwide. So they only take communion once a year. And most of them don't even take it. They just observe it, but they don't actually take it because only the 144,000 can take it. They don't really know even today who is the 144,000. But that's a different subject. So you can see they're very evangelistic, okay? And that is impressive to me, the amount of time that they put in with their members trying to get them to reach the lost. Okay? Here's a map of where they're at. You can see the countries that they're at. The United States, of course, has the biggest constellation of these people. There's a lot down in Brazil, but you can see over in Russia and in other countries, they're strong in these countries also. Now, one thing you're going to see, though, is even though they're evangelistic, they'll come to your house, but you'll never see them in our church buildings because they really believe that anybody that's not a Jehovah Witness is on the wrong side. I mean, they're like really bad, especially people from other churches. So they will not. The Mormons they'll actually send their missionaries into our church buildings. Okay, these guys will not do that. So they'll come into your home, but that's as far as they're gonna go. So let's talk about their church structure and their leadership, because this is important for them making decisions. So here's a little chart here. You got Jehovah God at the top, then you have Jesus Christ. He's head of the Christian congregation, or they like to call it organization. And then you have the next part here, the governing body. This is very important. These are the guys that make all the decisions doctrinally. Okay, they're in Warwick, New York now. They moved from New York City to Warwick, which is just a little bit south of New York City, and that's their headquarters, and that's where they make all of their decisions. And then they have elders. Okay. And I've studied with many of their elders, and then the rest of the people. So that's how they're set up. But this is a picture of their governing body. You can see their headquarters here in Warwick, New York. Okay, you can see where this is located at. And again, they make all the decisions. They decide what everyone believes on every subject. And this is a list of their presidents. Now, today they still have a president, but presidents before, probably before 2002, they made decisions on doctrinal things, okay? What to believe, what not to believe. But then after about this, I can think their last president, they changed that. And now that president has nothing to do with what their beliefs are. He just deals with the financial parts of things, okay? So that has changed for them. So everything is left to the governing body on what they believe. Now let's talk about their publications and study materials. So the Watchtower magazine has a circulation larger than any other magazine in the world. Okay? Each issue has a print run of more than 42 million copies. That is massive. Now, this is the stuff they're going to hand you at your door. They come to your door. They also have the Awake magazine, which is second, with a circulation of 41 million copies each issue. All right, so they're doing a lot of printing. I mean, massive amounts of publications going out. And both magazines are printed by the Jehovah Witnesses and are distributed into 236 different lands or countries. That's right off of their website. That's a lot. That's a lot. So here they are. Here's you got your Watchtower magazine. You've got your Awake magazine over here on the other side. If they do come into your house, they're wanting to get you into a study. Okay. And if they get you into a study, this is the book they're going to use. They have a study book that they're going to take you through. Okay. It has 60 different lessons. Okay. And they want to take you through every one of these lessons. And it's all put out by the Watchtower. If you go to one of their Bible studies, okay, like here across the street, they have them on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. Their parking lot is always full, okay. They're going to use books like this. And the last one that I was in, they were still in the book of Acts, and this is the book, and it's printed by the Watchtower. And so everything they study, everything is laid out word for word. They literally read it word for word. And it doesn't matter if you were in Japan last Thursday or if you're in Waxahachie, Texas, everyone in the world on that day from the Jehovah Witness is going to be reading directly from that script. And they don't leave that script. Everything is laid out. And so if they want to focus on something in the book of Acts, they'll say, man, we need to focus on this. And then they'll just skip over other things. And so they're really deciding what their people are to believe and what their people are not to believe. It's all laid out. This is their Bibles, okay? They have a Bible. It's called the New World Translation. It first came out in 1950, and it came out just in the New Testament. It took them until about 1961, and then the Old Testament was completed, and then it was added to it. Okay. Now they've made some modifications since then. They had one in 1970, 1984, and 2013. It took a little while to get them out, but this is the 1971 edition. It's right behind me. I've got it here. Okay. I've got it marked up. And then the newer one they have is the 2013 edition. And I suggest if you ever go in and deal with them, ask them for one of their Bibles, okay? And get a copy. They'll give you one. It's going to be really small. It's going to be pretty small print, but get one so you can see the changes that they have made. And we're going to go over those changes in the next video. This is going to be part 2, so you got to stay with me and get over that. I want to show you the changes that they made, which changes their theologies, which changes who Jesus is. It's dangerous what they've done, but you've got to see it with your own eyes. Okay. One of the things that they really push today is we've got to be the right church, the Jehovah Witness, because everyone believes and teaches the exact same thing. And they do. And they say there ain't another church in the world that does that. But could it be that the reason that you all teach and believe the exact same thing is because the Watchtower is telling you exactly what to believe? And you can never go off of script. And it's impossible to go off script. So of course you're going to all look exactly the same, believe the same thing, and teach the same thing because the Watchtower is telling you to do that. Do you understand what that sounds like? That sounds like a cult, doesn't it? Sure does. In fact, let me prove that. So when I was preaching up in northern Michigan, in Beulah, at the Beulah Church of Christ, once a month I would try to go visit all of our members. Okay, well, I'm trying to get one day I would leave about 7:30 in the morning, and I'd try to visit every one of our members that day, and sometimes I wouldn't get home till 2 in the morning, hitting everybody's schedules, work schedules, and all this, and lifestyle schedules, and it would take a while. They were in 3 different counties. So I'm up here in Copish, Michigan, and I got a little downtime trying to get to between one visit to the next visit. And I passed by a Kingdom Hall building, and it says Bible study at 7 o'clock. And I look at my watch, and I go, man, I got time. I'm going in. So I went in, okay? And I went in, and they were passing around a microphone, okay? And people are talking. They're making comments. There's 2 guys leading this study, okay? And again, they are reading exactly what the Watchtower is telling them to read, word for word. They were in the book of Isaiah that year, and they were on the subject of the 144,000. And they were saying that only 144,000 will ever make it to heaven. Okay? And they get this from Revelation chapter 7. Well, I raised my hand. I got a question. So they passed the microphone to me. And I said, I have a question. The 2 men looked at me, looked at each other, and then turned to me and said, we don't ask questions here. I'm thinking, wait a minute. These other people were talking. What do you mean you don't ask questions here? And then it dawned on me. They weren't asking questions. They were only confirming what the Watchtower said. See, when you're a Jehovah Witness, you cannot question what the Watchtower says. I mean, it's like they're God. And that, again, is a cult. So they would not allow me to ask a question in their setting. So I had to wait till afterwards. I went up to them and asked the question. Now, here's the question I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask, when you go to Revelation chapter 7, it talks about the 144,000 will be saved. It says, then I saw standing before the throne a great multitude that no one could count from every nation under heaven. I just wanted to know, well, who are those people? That's all I wanted to know. If only 144,000, what you're saying, is going to heaven, who are the people in the next verse? Well, I got to ask it afterwards, and the guy handed me their commentary on the book of Revelation. Still have it on my desk, or on my bookshelf right behind me. They spent 3 pages trying to explain that standing before the throne did not mean standing before the throne. It actually meant standing in view of the throne. And so the rest of those people will not be in heaven. Those people will only be down here on earth, and they can see the throne from earth, but they won't be in front of the throne. 3 pages to explain that. And I'm like, I mean, it says what it says. Now, you just imagine this. If you were to join the Jehovah Witnesses today, your chances of making it to heaven are 0. Because you think about this. If there's 8.8 million Jehovah Witnesses today, not including all the Jehovah Witnesses that have ever died, okay, and only 144,000 make it, of all of those years, you're just not going to make it to heaven. Doesn't give you a lot of hope, does it? No, it sure doesn't. It changes everything. So anyways, again, it just shows that they have this cult-like belief. You can't question the Watchtower. And that is sad. So, how do you reach those kind of people? Well, I'm glad you asked, okay? I'm glad you asked. So, as of late in our world, we have been watching Israel, okay? And you've seen all these bombs coming from other countries and missiles and stuff. Well, they have what's called the Iron Dome, okay? And the Iron Dome tries to shoot those things out of the sky before they ever land. And so they have an Iron Dome to protect their people. That's exactly what the Jehovah Witnesses do. They have an Iron Dome to protect their people. Do you remember this this movie Independence Day? Okay. Now, here they had these aliens come in. Will Smith back in the 80s, okay? Tells you how old I am, okay? And they were trying to, here these aliens coming down. They're trying to get at their spaceships. Well, they can't because there's a shield around it, all right? And so they would try to get in there with, shooting bombs at it and stuff, shoot a nuclear warhead at it. It would just bounce off and they were protected, okay? So the only way that they could get in is to look like one of them, all right? And so they actually had a spaceship that belonged to them, okay? They got inside that spaceship and they went in and they were able to get inside of the spaceship and then destroy it from within. That's basically what we have to do. Now, you might say to yourself, isn't that deceiving, James? Yeah, it kind of sounds like it would be in a sense, wouldn't it? But think about what the Apostle Paul said. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, he said, I became all things to all men to win some. To the Jew, I become the Jew. To the Gentile, I become the Gentile. To the weak, I become weak so that I can win some. So Paul has to adapt to his audience, to his people, okay? Trying to put himself in their shoes and understand them and where they're coming from so that he can better win them. So if the Apostle Paul did it, and that's what he did, didn't he? What would he do when he went into a city? Every time he would go into the Jewish synagogue, they're not even in there talking about Jesus. He's going into a place that this is where people are meeting, and he would befriend them, he'd get to know them, he would be asked to speak, and he would tell them about Jesus, who they don't believe in. We have to do the same thing. We have to go in, we have to get with them, we have to befriend them, and then hopefully they'll allow us to speak and to talk to them and show them the truth of God's Word. You've got to get through the barrier. The problem is we don't get past the barrier. We don't spend the time to go into their world. We got to do better. So the Watchtower is very protective of their people. This is their old headquarters in New York City, and they will protect their people. If you get too close to them, okay, I've been in Bible studies in my home with Jehovah Witnesses, and if you get too close, they will rip a weaker person out of that Bible study and they will interject one of their elders, and that person will be gone because they don't want them questioning in their minds what you're talking about. And that's what they do. They'll rip them off the missionary field. They'll send them home. They'll fly them right out of the country because they protect their people. Again, a cult-like type atmosphere. So let's talk about one of their doctrines. And this is a doctrine we're going to discuss through the rest of this video. Okay? So I want you to think about this doctrine of 1914. Okay? So think about 1914. This is the year World War I began. Okay? Russell, their first leader, this is what he predicted would happen in 1914. Now remember, he lived in the 1800s. Okay? He predicted that God's kingdom would take full control of earth on the ruins of present institutions. All these other churches are going to be destroyed, and the Jehovah Witnesses will dominate the world. Secondly, Christ would be present on earth as earth's new ruler. So Christ is going to be present on this earth, and he will rule this earth. 1914. The last of the royal priesthood, the body of Christ, would be glorified with Christ, and they would be raptured. Okay, royal priesthood, I think this is probably pointing to the 144,000. They're all going to be taken up and gone, shot to heaven. Okay, Jerusalem would no longer be trodden down by the Gentiles. Well, have you watched the news lately and seen the Iron Dome and all that? Yeah, those people never stop fighting over there. Okay, well, that didn't happen. Israel's blindness will begin to be turned away. All Jews will follow Christ. Okay, this comes out of the book of Romans, that all these Jews will just turn over and start following Jesus. That's a theory that comes out of the book of Romans. God's kingdom would, the great time of trouble would reach its accumulation of worldwide anarchy, Armageddon. That's going to start in 1914. God's kingdom would smite and crush the Gentile image and fully consume all these kings. Comes out of the book of Daniel 2, and then all other religious groups would be destroyed. They said this and that it would happen in 1914, and then Russell added 1918. Okay? Well, guess what? None of that happened. So since none of that happened, they really now today only hold on to one thing that he taught that would happen in 1914. And they believe that in 1914, God the Father handed over to Jesus his kingdom rule to him, and he started ruling in 1914. That's what they believe. Now, if you don't believe that, let's look at their website. And this is it. So you can get on their jw.org website, and this is what it says. How did the Jehovah Witnesses know more than 30 years in advance that 1914 would be an important date for divine rulership? Okay, Russell, again, would teach this. Though the witnesses at that time did not understand the full implication of events about to take place, the Watchtower magazine, as far back as December of 1879, pointed to 1914 as a marked date in regard to Bible prophecy. And the March 1880 issue of the Watchtower linked God's kingdom rule with the ending of what Jesus Christ referred to as the appointed time of the nations, or the time of the Gentiles, Luke 21:24, a verse that is taken entirely out of its context, talking about the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And so they're taking that and applying this, okay? That the Watchtower said the times of the Gentiles was to extend to 1914, and the heavenly kingdom rule would not have full sway until then. So this is a big theory for the Jehovah Witnesses. All right? Now, what did Jesus do to win the Pharisees and the Sadducees? They had all these doctrinal beliefs that went against the Bible. How did he get to them? He made them think. He made them doubt. He would use the scriptures to make them doubt. All right? It's the same way with the Jehovah Witness. They believe these things. Everything they believe in is in the Watchtower. Whatever this governing body says, this is what we believe. They hold them up as the prophets of God. If you can show that these prophets are false, it will cause the whole structure to dissolve. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to do that to be able to win these people. And it takes time. It takes a lot of time and effort to get in and understand that. So that's why we're going to look at this doctrine of theirs today of 1914 and see if it matches the Bible. And I'm going to show you how you can show them that their theory is incorrect. So here's a chart right off the internet of theirs, okay? It takes us 7 times. We're going to talk about the 2,520 years. And they connect all this math equation and land at 1914. We're going to explain that in a minute. So how did they arrive at 1914? Well, I'm going to show you. So we're going to go over here to the book of Daniel. A lot of extreme groups, religions of today claim to be Christians use the book of Daniel and Revelation with their radical theories. Seventh-day Adventists does it. The Mormons do it. Okay. The premillennialists do it. Jehovah Witnesses do it. They use Daniel and Revelation, and they just make these absurd theories out of it. So, let's talk about Daniel 4. What's Daniel 4 about? The book of Daniel in chapters 2, 3, and 4 really focuses on one guy, King Nebuchadnezzar, okay, Gentile king. And God is really trying to get a hold of this guy. So in chapter 2, he has a dream of this statue. Daniel goes in and interprets it for him, and he's like, I get it. God is the God of heaven. But he doesn't get it. Because when you get to chapter 3, it's like he forgot all that, right? Kind of like we do sometimes. And God now Nebuchadnezzar has this great statue built and everybody's got to worship. Well, that brings us Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They refuse to worship it. So, well, take them and throw them in the fire. And so Nebuchadnezzar's watching this, and they go in there and they stoke up this fire so hot, and they come out and they don't even smell like smoke. Nebuchadnezzar's like, I got it. These guys are worshiping the God of heaven. I'm going to worship the same God that they worship. Okay? I get it. God of the Bible is the only God. But he doesn't get it. And then we come to chapter 4 where we're at right here. Now he's got a pride problem. He looks at his great nation of Babylon, his great city, beats his chest and says, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. And Daniel says, you got a pride problem. And so he has another dream. And Daniel interprets that dream. And that dream is that this big tree is going to be cut down. That's Nebuchadnezzar. It's going to leave a stump. And you're going to go out and eat, be humbled by God, and eat grass like cattle until 7 times pass by. And then, once those 7 times pass by, you're going to get your kingdom restored back to you. Now, that's the context of Daniel 2, 3, and 4. Okay? Let's read it. You, O king, saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven and saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump, bound with iron and bronze, in the grass of the field, while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be drenched with the dew of heaven. Who? Him, Nebuchadnezzar. Let him, who, Nebuchadnezzar, live like the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him. The context is Nebuchadnezzar. The context of the 7 times is dealing with him. Well, the Jehovah Witnesses took this word 7 times, these 2 words 7 times, and they make a math equation out of it. They say that the 7 times in Daniel equates to 2,520 literal years. Okay, so just think about this. 7 times, 2,520 literal years. Did you get that from that? I didn't get that from that. It's just some period of time. The number 7 means complete in the Bible. So for some complete period of time, or however long it takes for you to get your act together, I'll give you your kingdom back. That's all it says. But they believe it's 2,520 literal years. And they think that points to 1914. Now let me show you how they do it. Okay, now here's what you got to do. This is going to sound pretty wild to you. Okay? And if you're sitting across the table with them, you're going to almost want to laugh. Don't laugh at these people. They believe what they believe. You've believed things. I've believed things that were so far from what God wanted. Would we be offended if somebody laughed at us? Absolutely. Were we still dead wrong? Absolutely. Don't laugh at them. Okay? Show compassion here. So they take the 7 times in Daniel chapter 4, turn it into a math equation. So here is the equation. 7 times 360. Okay, 7 times. Where are they getting the 360 from? 360 is actually the days of the Jewish calendar. Okay, if you took a year How many days is in the Jewish calendar? 360. Okay? You'll see that in the book of Revelation. Their calendar is a little shorter than ours. Okay? Then they take that and turn the 360 into years. When you take the 360 days, turn them into years, and you take the 7 times 360, where they got the idea to just throw 360 in there, the Jewish calendar, to come up with 2,520 years, where they came up with that it's like a rabbit being pulled out of a hat. But I'm going to show you where they got it from. Now, they got this number, but they need a starting point to start an equation with it. So what they do is they jump over to 607 BC. Well, they believe that in 607 BC is when Israel was destroyed, the temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, okay? And it was, but not in 607. It was destroyed in 586, so the years are off. And they're believing that this is when Babylonian Empire was destroyed and the temple, okay? Now remember what Daniel's talking about. He's talking about King Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom being taken away. He's going to go out and eat grass like cattle, right? Until 7 times pass by. Well, they flip that, leave the context of Daniel, and they jump over and say, no, that was actually talking about Israel's kingdom. But that's not what it said. But that's what they believe. Okay? So the kingdom being taken away. After they take the 607 BC and add 2,500 years to it, it produces a year 1914. Okay? There's your math equation. Now, what do they say happened in 1914? According to their beliefs, Jehovah entrusted rulership over mankind to his Son, Jesus Christ, glorified in the heavens. They use another verse over here in Daniel 7, 13 and 14 to support their view. And according to them, this is the year that Jesus started to rule. Okay? It's pretty complicated here, isn't it? So the kingdom is now being restored. Now the kingdom is restored. And that's when Charles Russell said all these things were going to happen in 1914. That didn't. There's another reason why 1914 works for Charles. Because he was influenced by pyramidology. Pyramids. Okay? So he got with this guy, John Taylor, and Charles Smith, Nelson Barber, and then Charles Russell, and they all taught that the Great Pyramid of Giza contained prophetic measurements in pyramid inches. And so if you go there and you measure these measurements off of this pyramid, it pointed to 1874 and it pointed to 1914. And Russell viewed the Great Pyramid of Giza as God's stone witness and prophet to this world. Now I get it. You wanna laugh here, don't you? Seriously? So those measurements confirm his math equation. And so that's what gives confirmation that this math equation is correct. If you don't believe that, go to his burial site. So there's Charles Taze Russell. He was buried in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what's his gravestone? A pyramid. That's right, because that's what he believed in. And I've got a little circle here on the other picture here of the cross there. Remember, they don't believe in crosses. Well, back then, apparently they did, because it's on their leader's burial site. Again, I'm just saying. So, they combine all that, come up with the year 1914. This is when Jesus started to rule his kingdom. Okay? So there's the 2,520 years. There's their starting point, 607 BC. You add 2,520 years, and it lands you to 1914 AD. There's their math. It's still on the internet. right on their website. So how do you show that this doctrine has no biblical support? I mean, it doesn't matter if you use the Bible that I use. Okay, this is one of my many Bibles. I have a bunch of them behind my shelf right here. Or if you use the Jehovah Witness Bible. Both of them are going to say the same thing in the verses that I'm about to show you. That you're going to be able to show them that in their Bible or the Bibles we use, doesn't matter, it has no biblical support. You've got to make them doubt. If you don't, they're going to stay right where they are at. So let's look at the context of Daniel 4 again. So back to Daniel 4, here's Daniel interpreting this dream. He says, you will be driven away from people and will live like the wild animals. Who? Nebuchadnezzar. You will eat grass like cattle and be drenched with the dew of heaven. Who? Nebuchadnezzar. 7 times will pass by for you until you acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over the kingdoms of men and gives them to anyone he wishes. The commandment to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored when you, who? Nebuchadnezzar, and you acknowledge that heaven rules. Therefore, O king, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed, and it may be that then your prosperity will continue. That's the context. Look at the context. Show that to your Jehovah Witness friends. So here he is. He's got a pride problem. Look at this great city I built. God says, I'm taking you out, dude. Here's this big tree. I made you flourish. I gave this to you. And now I'm going to cut that tree down. Cuts that tree down, but there's a stump left, right? It's going to be taken away, right? You're going to go out and eat grass like cattle. You're going to grow long fingernails and stuff until 7 times pass by you, and then your kingdom will be restored. And then what does Daniel say? And at the end of time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my understanding returned to me. And I blessed the Most High and praised and honored him who lives forever, for his dominion is an everlasting dominion. His kingdom is from generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are reputed as nothing. He does according to his will in the army of heaven. And among the inhabitants of the earth, no one can restrain his hand or say to him, what have you done? That's what Nebuchadnezzar says. At that time, Nebuchadnezzar, reason was returned to me. And for the glory of my kingdom, my honor and the splendor returned to me. My counselors and nobles resorted to me. I was restored to my kingdom. Restored to me, and excellent majesty was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven, all those whose works are true, and his ways justice. And those who walk in pride, he, God, is able to put down. That is the context. And he received his kingdom back. And you know that if you go to history outside of the Bible during this time, Nebuchadnezzar just vanished for years. He's just gone. What happened to him? Well, I'll tell you what happened to him. This is what happened to him. He's out eating grass like cattle. And then all of a sudden he shows back up again out of nowhere. So the Bible and history match each other perfectly. So to believe that Daniel chapter 4 is pointing to Jesus and his kingdom rule beginning in 1914 is to absolutely leave the context of the Bible. And it's your job and my job to show those people that they have been misled by people. That's what we got to do. Wrong context. Now, let's talk about the right context. If they're looking for the kingdom, well, let's show them how, when, and where do you get into this kingdom? right? The kingdom hall, right? Where does this happen at? Well, we're going to go to Daniel 2. Daniel 2 is going to tell us. Okay? Now, we're not being radical. We're just going to use our Bibles. So here you are in Daniel 2, and we're going back to Nebuchadnezzar. Context, Nebuchadnezzar. He has this dream, right? There's a statue. There's 4 parts to the statue. And each one of these parts represent a kingdom. The first part is King Nebuchadnezzar. So Daniel can interpret this dream. He comes and tells him what the dream was. Then he interprets it. And he says, this is the dream. Now we will tell you the interpretation of it before the king. You, O king, are the King of Kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom. That's right, the Babylonians. Power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of heaven, he has given them into your hand, and he has made you ruler over all of them. You are the head of gold. You are. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as it breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces all the other kingdoms. Okay, there's the dream. And in the days of these kings, what kings? That fourth empire. The fourth empire that Daniel is talking about, right? There was 4 parts to that statue. The kings from that fourth empire, the God of heaven is going to set up what? A kingdom. There you go. That shall never be destroyed. Man, every kingdom I know is destroyed. Where's the great Third Reich of Hitler? Gone. Where's the great Egypt and the pyramids? Gone. Where's the great Rome? Gone. They're all gone. The United States one day is going to be gone if it goes long enough. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all the kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. There it is. So, who are these 4 kingdoms? Well, get your history book out. First was the Babylonians. Well, who came in and took over the Babylonians? The Medo-Persians. You're going to see that in the book of Daniel. Okay. Then the Grecian Empire is going to come and take over. You're going to see that in Daniel 8. You're going to see that very clearly. Those are the next kingdom. Who follows after the Grecian Empire? The Roman Empire. And what's God going to do? He's going to set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. All right. Pretty clear. So, Roman Empire. So here you are. All 4 kingdoms, when they reigned, here comes the Roman Empire. Who was born during the Roman Empire? Jesus. Look at Luke chapter 2. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. What is this telling about? The birth of Jesus. Joseph and Mary had to go to Bethlehem to register to vote. Right? That's what this chapter is about. When did he come? During the time of those kings. In the time of those kings, the kings of the Fourth Empire, Rome, somebody's going to come. He's going to set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. So when did Jesus come? Right, what Daniel said, during the time of those kings. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go to the next chapter, chapter 3. In the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, talking about Pontius Pilate. So, here's Jesus now. He's going to start his ministry. Now he's 30 years old. He's going to start preaching. When did that happen? During the reign of Tiberius Caesar. Who's Tiberius Caesar? A king of the Roman Empire. So Jesus was born, lived, and died during the Roman Empire, during the time of those kings. There it is. Amazing. Matthew 16. Jesus is going to build something while he's here. He's talking to Peter and his other apostles. He says, and also I say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock I'll build. He's going to build something, my church. And the gates of Hades shall not overpower it. Oh, it's going to be a kingdom that will never be destroyed. Oh, there it is. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Right? And whatever you bound on earth shall have been bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in heaven. Right? Peter's got the keys. And he's going to go out and he's going to be the first one to preach to the Jewish people. And where's that going to happen at? Well, let's see. So, Jesus is going to build his kingdom, the church, never be destroyed. Gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. Then he has a conversation with his apostles. In Mark chapter 9, verse 1, he said to them, truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death till they see the kingdom of God come with power. That means that some apostles that are alive during the time of Jesus are not going to taste death until they see the kingdom of God come. Well, one of those apostles won't see it. His name is Judas. He's going to go out and hang himself. But the rest of them are still going to be alive, and they're going to see the kingdom of God come. And when are they going to see that? On the day of Pentecost, 50 days after Jesus was crucified. And the day of Pentecost came. They were all together. Who? The apostles. In one place. Suddenly a sound like the blowing of a violent wind came from heaven and filled the whole house where they were sitting. They saw what seemed to be tongues of fire that separated, came and rested on each of them. And they were filled with the Holy Spirit. And they began to speak in tongues as the Spirit enabled them. Here's the power coming down on them. And then they go out and preach. And they tell people about Jesus and how people crucified him. And then they're going to tell them about his kingdom and how to get in that kingdom. And then Peter preaches to them and says what? Then those who gladly received his word were baptized. And on that day, 3,000 souls were added. Added to what? God's kingdom, his church. Verse 47. Praising God and having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to his church daily those who were being saved. Same chapter. They're being added to the church, the kingdom, God's people. When? During the Roman Empire. During the time of those kings. Jesus is going to set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. That's the one I want to be a part of. Matthew 28:18. And Jesus came to them and spoke to them just before he leaves this earth. All authority has been given unto me in heaven and on earth. When did Jesus have all authority? In 1914? No. No, it was way before that. It was back there while he was on earth. All authority is given unto him. And look at Luke chapter 24, verse 51 through 52. While he was blessing them, he left them and was taken up into heaven. They were worshiping him and then returned to Jerusalem with great joy. Why are they worshiping Jesus? Because he has all authority. He is God. Jehovah Witnesses do not believe that. And they're going to change that word worship in their Bibles. And so when we get to their Bibles in the next study, you need to look at that. That's what they do to change people's minds. Be careful. And then Acts 7:55 and 56. Here's Stephen. He's being stoned to death, right? Remember this with the apostle. Eventually, he's going to be the apostle Paul, Saul of Tarsus. But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, gazed into heaven, saw the glory of God, and Jesus standing at the right hand of God. Where is Jesus standing? This is after his resurrection, at the right hand of God. When was this? This is about 5 years after Jesus died, according to the scholars. Was this 1914 that Jesus is standing at the right hand of God, reigning? Or is he standing at the right hand of God reigning back in the first century? Big difference. And said, look, I see the heavens open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of God. And then you go back to this prophecy. It comes out of Psalm 16. David lived 1,000 years before Jesus got here. Peter, when he's preaching on the day of Pentecost, 1,000 years later, after Jesus' resurrection and ascension back to heaven, this is what he quotes to the people to convince them who Jesus is. David said this about him. Who's him? Jesus. I saw the Lord always before me, because he's at my right hand. What is David seeing here? This quote that Peter is quoting from the book of Psalms, what is he seeing here? He's seeing Jesus standing at the right hand of the Father in heaven. When did that take place? After his resurrection. That was prophesied 1,000 years before it happened. And 1,000 years later, guess where Jesus is at? At the right hand of the Father. Reigning. And David talked about it 1,000 years before he got here. But the Jehovah Witnesses missed this. They missed this. I will not be shaken, therefore my heart is glad and my tongue rejoices. My body will also live in hope, because you have not abandoned me to the grave, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. You have made known to me the paths of life, and will fill me with joy in your presence. Talking about the resurrection. Talking about Jesus reigning. That's where he went when he left this earth. He sat at the right hand of the Father, and he reigns from heaven. So, what was all of this pointing to? Was this pointing to 1914? Was this pointing during the Roman Empire, during the time of those kings, as Daniel said? Sure was. Everything was pointing to that. All taking place between 27 and 29 AD, not 1914 AD. Well, when these things didn't happen, as Charles Taze Russell said they would, over the years, the Jehovah Witnesses had to modify their predictions. So here's what they did. Since Jesus didn't return to this earth in 1914, many modifications were made. They changed it to 1915. They changed it to 1916. Then when that didn't happen, they changed it to 1918. They changed it to 1925. Then they went all the way to 1975. So they took a verse out of Matthew 24, which we looked at, 34, using it to teach that the end of the world, that the end would come when everyone from that generation of 1914 died. This is what they did. They changed it. Once you see the verse. Assuredly I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. So they ran over here and took this verse out of its context, okay, and saying, oh, wasn't actually 1914 that's when Jesus was going to return. It was actually when that generation, it would happen before that generation of 1914 passed away. So look at their Watchtower magazine. Here is a picture that they produced of a bunch of their Jehovah Witness members. And they're still alive in this picture. And the theory is before all of them died, Jesus then would return to this earth and start reigning. Well, watch over to the side. Here's the names of all those people, and every one of them have since passed. Well, did Jesus come back? All of them have died and still nothing happened. So even that modification, that until that generation passes, all these things would take place, that didn't happen either. Again, a misapplication, misusing the text, making it try to say something that it wasn't even in the context of saying. So this is what they do. And they do it again and again and again and again. And yet, their parking lot across the street is full all the time. All the time. People are there constantly, believing what these people have told them, even though their predictions have been endlessly and endlessly and endlessly wrong. So there are hundreds of more prophecies. There's just all kinds of prophecies. I just would like you to see one on here. In 1942, they taught that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was going to return to Earth. So they built a mansion in California for him. Well, guess what? They didn't show up. So they changed and said, oh, we got our numbers wrong. It's actually 1915 that they're going to show up. Well, guess what? They didn't show up. So now they're stuck with this mansion. So one of their leaders said, well, I might as well move in here since, they're not coming. Again, all these predictions, all these things that's going to happen, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of predictions. They're very well known for that. This is just a couple of the many that they have. And yet, what's their track record? How many of their prophecies have come true? 0. Not one. So, conclusion. Instead of taking 2 words 7 times in Daniel chapter 4, removing it from its context, then doing a big math equation with it, by using other verses in the Bible, which also are taken out of their context, in hopes of establishing a date for when God's eternal kingdom was established, 1914, why not just use the Bible to find the verses that plainly tell us about God's kingdom, when it became accessible, which is on the day of Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, in about 29 AD. Why not just do that? It's not that difficult. This is a far cry from what the Jehovah Witnesses theory is, 1914, which has none biblical support. Not their Bibles, not our Bibles. It's not there. Show them that. Do you love them enough to show them that? Conclusion. I want you to see these 3 articles and we're going to be done. I know this is a long video, okay? Hope you took a break during it, okay? What do they say about false prophecy? What does the Jehovah Witness teach about when people falsely prophesy about things? Well, let's see. We're just going to look at their publications. So we're going to go to the Watchtower, May 1930, on page 154 and 155. Since the Bible was completed and inspiration is no longer necessary, a true prophet is one who is faithfully proclaiming what is written in the Bible. But it may be asked, how do we know whether one is a true prophet or a false prophet? There are at least 3 ways by which we can positively decide. Number 1, if he's a true prophet, his message will come to pass exactly as prophesied. If he is a false prophet, his prophecy will fail to come to pass. And this rule is actually laid down by God himself through Moses as follows. So they're going to use some Bible here. They're going to use the King James Version here. This is in Deuteronomy 18:20 something. Okay? You can go back and find that. It might be verse 20. If thou say in thine heart, how shall we know the word which the Lord has spoken? How do we know who to believe? They were asking Moses this. Here's his answer. When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing that follows not, nor comes to pass, that is a thing the Lord has not spoken, and the prophet has spoken presumptuously. Okay? It didn't come to pass. Don't believe it. It didn't come from God. Then they jump back over to Deuteronomy 13:5. What do you do with those false prophets? That prophet thou shalt be put to death because he has spoken he has spoken to people to turn away from the Lord your God. So when somebody says things and makes predictions and tells that things are going to happen and they don't happen, and they say that's from God, what does Deuteronomy say? They should be put to death. Now this is their article. This is everything on their article right here. They wrote this. And yet, how's their prophecies coming? They're not good. Here's another one. Awake magazine, October 8th, 1968. True, there have been those who predicted an end of the world. Okay, Jehovah Witness did, sure. even announcing a specific date. Some have gathered groups of people with them and fled to the hills or withdrawn to their houses waiting for the end. Yeah, what happened? Nothing. The end didn't come. They were guilty of false prophesying. Why? What was missing? Missing was the full measure of evidence required in fulfillment of Bible prophecy. Missing from such people were God's truths and the evidence that He was guiding and using them. Yeah, that's their article. I would fully agree with that article right there. Absolutely. And yet, what have the Jehovah Witnesses done? Made false prophecy and false prophecy and false prophecy. Those are the guys that are putting out all their material and feeding it to their people. False prophets. One more, and we'll be done. Watchtower, April 1972, page 197. So, does Jehovah have a prophet to help them, to warn them of dangers and to declare things to come? He had a prophet to warn them. This prophet was not one man, but was a body of men and women. It was the small group of footstep followers of Jesus Christ, known at that time as International Bible Students. Today, they are known as the Jehovah's Christian Witnesses. Of course, it may be easy to say that this group acts as a prophet of God. It's another thing to prove it. The only way this can be done is to review their record. What does it show? That's their article. Well, folks, what does it show? It shows endless false prophesying, endless lies. None of this came from God. Their prophecies are false. They are lying to their people, and their people don't know it. And who's going to tell them? Do you think our government's going to tell them? I don't think so. I don't think so. Do you think our school system's going to tell them? Nope. Who's that going to leave? It's going to leave you. Do you love them enough to tell them this? Hopefully by sharing this information in love, it may just cause them to question what they've been taught. Remember what Jesus says, John 8:31-32, the truth will set you free. I did not use my opinions or my ideas in this video. I backed up everything with the scriptures. And that's what you have to do. Don't tell them what you think or what you believe or what your grandma thought. Don't even tell them what the Church of Christ believes. Don't tell them that. Show them what the Bible says. And hopefully you've got a truth seeker that's truly seeking the truth, and they will change. But it takes a lot of work. Are you willing to do it? That's what you and I have been commissioned to do. Pray this video has helped. If you got some questions, holler at me. Love to talk to you at the Brown Street Church of Christ in Waxahachie, Texas. Just look it up. Get on my website there. Get on my videos. Hopefully these things will help. Send them to your friends. We got work to do. There's people that are dying every day, lost and separated from Jesus. And it's our job to try and reach them. I love you guys. Hey, we'll see you next time. God bless you.